Have you ever wondered how The Simpsons can predict the future? Well, The Simpsons have accurately predicted more than 30 real-life events. The coronavirus, Queen Elizabeth's death, presidential elections, and the craziest one yet.
For more than 3 decades, The Simpsons has entertained audiences with outrageous jokes, bizarre inventions, impossible scenarios, and wildly exaggerated visions of the future. Most were written purely for laughs. Yet, every so often, reality seems to catch up. A throwaway gag suddenly mirrors a major world event. An absurd futuristic gadget begins appearing in real life, or a fictional headline starts looking eerily familiar. Well, today we're exploring instances where The Simpsons warned us about 2026. Number 20. AI turns against us. Artificial intelligence has advanced at a pace few people imagined possible. In just a handful of years, AI has evolved from a niche research topic into a technology that writes code, generates artwork, assists doctors with diagnoses, powers self-driving systems, and answers millions of questions every day. But what happens when humans can no longer fully understand or control the systems they create? In the 2016 episode The Marge Ian Chronicles, the Simpson family visits a futuristic attraction operated almost entirely by intelligent robots. Everything appears flawless until the machines suddenly malfunction and begin treating the guests as threats instead of customers. Played for laughs, the episode nevertheless echoes a real challenge in AI research known as the alignment problem, ensuring advanced AI continues pursuing human goals even as it becomes more capable. Organizations developing frontier AI models now invest heavily in safety testing because even unintended behavior from powerful systems could have far-reaching consequences. The episode also hints at another reality unfolding today. AI is already transforming industries ranging from customer service and transportation to software development, education, and media production. What does this mean for us humans? Job loss. The attack is already here. Scary, right? Well, we're just getting started. Number 19. California engulfed in flames. On January 7, 2025, a series of catastrophic wildfires erupted across the Los Angeles area after hurricane-force Santa Ana winds combined with exceptionally dry vegetation and prolonged drought conditions. Among the most destructive were the Palisades Fire and the Eaton Fire, which rapidly spread through residential communities, forcing more than 100,000 people to evacuate. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to ashes, thousands of homes and businesses were destroyed or damaged, and the disaster caused tens of billions of dollars in economic losses, making it one of the costliest wildfire events in California's history. Firefighters battled the blazes for weeks under extreme conditions, while experts pointed to a combination of climate change, years of accumulated vegetation, expanding development in fire-prone regions, and powerful Santa Ana winds as key factors that intensified the destruction. Strangely enough, The Simpsons had featured a remarkably similar image years earlier. In Season 33's 2-part episode, A Serious Flanders, Springfield descends into chaos after a wealthy tech billionaire's son unleashes a destructive space laser, igniting massive fires and reducing parts of the town to rubble. The episode was intended as an over-the-top parody of billionaire culture, futuristic weapons, and action movie cliches. But the visuals of entire communities engulfed in flames inevitably remind many viewers of the wildfire scenes that have repeatedly unfolded across Southern California. Number 18. The race to build flying cars. For generations, flying cars symbolized the ultimate vision of the future. They appeared in comic books, sci-fi films, and futuristic television long before the technology existed. The Simpsons embraced the idea in the 2005 episode Future Drama, where Bart and Lisa glimpse life in the future and airborne vehicles casually weave through the skyline as if traffic jams had become a relic of the past. At the time, the concept felt wildly optimistic. The real 2013 arrived with smartphones, streaming services, and social media dominance, but no commuters were soaring above city streets. Yet, the dream never disappeared. Over the past decade, advances in electric propulsion, lightweight materials, battery technology, and autonomous flight systems have transformed flying cars from fantasy into active engineering projects. Companies across Europe, Asia, and North America have invested billions into electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, or eVTOLs, hoping to create a new era of urban air mobility. Major names like Hyundai, Toyota, and Boeing have backed various projects, while startups continue testing prototypes designed to carry passengers above congested roads. One of the most talked-about milestones came in late 2023 when Samsung Sky's roadable aircraft, the Switchblade, completed its first successful flight after years of development. Unlike conventional aircraft, it is designed to be driven on public roads before converting into an airplane for flight. Meanwhile, companies such as Joby Aviation and Archer Aviation are working toward launching electric air taxi services in selected cities. Despite the excitement, widespread adoption remains years away. Still, it is a worthwhile wait. Moving on. Number 17. Apple Vision Pro. In the 2016 episode Friends and Family, Mr. Burns replaces human employees with virtual reality, leaving Springfield's residents immersed in computer-generated environments while carrying on with their daily routines. At the time, it seemed like another exaggerated joke about technology taking over modern life. Then came the real world. In 2023, Apple unveiled the Vision Pro, with the headset launching in the United States in early 2024. Unlike traditional virtual reality devices, Vision Pro combines virtual and augmented reality through what Apple calls spatial computing. Users can watch movies on massive virtual screens, browse the internet, work with multiple floating apps, conduct FaceTime calls using digital avatars, and interact with digital content using only their eyes, hands, and voice, all while remaining aware of their physical surroundings through high-resolution pass-through cameras. Of course, The Simpsons didn't predict Apple's product specifically. Virtual reality had existed for decades, and many companies, including Meta, Microsoft, HTC, and Sony, had already invested heavily in immersive computing. What makes the comparison so fascinating is how accurately the show captured the broader direction of consumer technology. Lightweight headsets becoming everyday devices capable of blending digital experiences with real life, rather than simply transporting users into video games. The technology is still in its early stages. High prices, limited battery life, software ecosystems, and questions about mainstream adoption remain significant challenges. Even so, devices like Vision Pro suggest that spatial computing could become as transformative as smartphones once were. Once again, The Simpsons ended up depicting a future that suddenly doesn't seem so far away. Wearable technology is only one piece of the puzzle. Our next prediction pushes the boundaries even further. Number 16. Cars that drive you. The idea of sitting back while your car does all the driving once belonged firmly to science fiction. The Simpsons imagined that future years ago. In the days of Future, the family rides in autonomous vehicles that make decisions on their own, including one hilariously refusing to honor a passenger's urgent request to stop for a bathroom break. It's a classic Simpsons gag, but beneath the comedy lies a serious question. What happens when software, not a human, is making every decision behind the wheel? Today, that question is no longer hypothetical. Companies such as Tesla, Waymo, Mercedes-Benz, Zoox, and several major automakers have spent years developing increasingly sophisticated autonomous driving systems. These vehicles rely on a combination of cameras, radar, LiDAR, GPS, and artificial intelligence to interpret road conditions, detect hazards, obey traffic laws, and react faster than most human drivers. In some cities, fully driverless robotaxis are already transporting paying passengers without anyone sitting in the driver's seat. Even so, the technology remains a work in progress. Self-driving systems can struggle with heavy rain, dense fog, construction zones, faded lane markings, unusual road layouts, or unpredictable human behavior. Several high-profile crashes involving advanced driver assistance and autonomous systems have intensified scrutiny from regulators and safety experts. So, while computers excel at following programmed rules, real-world driving often demands split-second judgment in situations they may never have encountered before. As vehicles become increasingly capable, society must decide how much control should remain in human hands and how much can safely be delegated to algorithms. The road toward fully autonomous transportation is clearly underway, but it's proving to be far more complicated than simply letting the car drive itself. Number 15. The pandemic was predicted. Years ago, years before COVID-19 changed everyday life across the globe, The Simpsons aired an episode that would later become one of its most talked-about predictions. In the 1993 classic Marge and Chains, Springfield is struck by the fictional Osaka flu after a factory worker in Japan accidentally coughs into a box containing a household appliance bound for the United States. Once the shipment reaches Springfield, the illness spreads rapidly, triggering panic throughout the town. The similarities to real events are striking. The episode highlighted how globalization, international trade, and rapid transportation can accelerate the spread of infectious diseases. Modern outbreaks, such as SARS in 2003, H1N1 influenza in 2009, COVID-19 beginning in 2019, and even recurring concerns over avian influenza have demonstrated just how interconnected global public health has become. Perhaps even more remarkable than the fictional virus is Springfield's response. As fear spreads, residents rush for miracle cures, rumors spiral out of control, misinformation spreads faster than facts, and public anxiety begins driving decisions as much as the illness itself. Rings a bell, doesn't it? Number 14. Trump as president, twice. In the 2000 episode Bart to the Future, Bart catches a glimpse of the future and discovers that Lisa Simpson has become president of the United States. During her first meeting, she remarks that the country inherited quite a budget crunch from her predecessor, President Donald Trump. At the time, the line landed as political satire. Trump was widely known as a real estate developer, businessman, and television personality, not a serious presidential contender in the eyes of most Americans. 16 years later, fiction suddenly collided with reality. In November 2016, Trump won the U.S. presidential election, becoming the 45th president after defeating Hillary Clinton. The story didn't end there. Eagle-eyed fans later pointed to another Simpsons scene featuring a Trump 2024 sign in the background. The image gained fresh attention after Trump announced his 2024 presidential campaign in November 2022. Then, following the 2024 election, he returned to the White House, becoming only the second person in U.S. history, after Grover Cleveland, to serve 2 non-consecutive presidential terms. Somehow, the predictions only get stranger from here. Number 13. The FIFA corruption scandal. In 2014, The Simpsons turned its attention to the world's most popular sport. In the episode You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee, Homer Simpson is unexpectedly chosen to officiate at the FIFA World Cup because of his reputation for honesty. Before a crucial match, however, corrupt officials attempt to bribe him into influencing the result. Homer refuses. Just a year later, reality delivered an even bigger shock. In May 2015, Swiss authorities, acting on U.S. indictments, arrested several senior FIFA officials at a luxury hotel in Zurich ahead of the organization's annual Congress. The investigation uncovered allegations of decades-long corruption involving bribery, wire fraud, racketeering, money laundering, and multi-million-dollar kickback schemes tied to media rights, marketing contracts, and international tournaments. The scandal ultimately implicated dozens of football executives and business figures, becoming one of the largest corruption investigations in sports history. The fallout reached the very top. FIFA president Sepp Blatter, who had led the organization since 1998, announced his resignation just days after winning another term, although he denied wrongdoing. Subsequent investigations led to lengthy suspensions, criminal prosecutions, and renewed scrutiny over the bidding processes for major tournaments, including past World Cup host selections. FIFA later introduced governance reforms aimed at increasing transparency and rebuilding public confidence. Number 12. AI learns to decode baby cries. Every new parent knows the same frustrating mystery. What is the baby trying to say? A cry could mean hunger, pain, exhaustion, discomfort, or simply a need for comfort, yet infants have no words to explain what they need. The Simpsons turned that universal challenge into comedy by introducing a fictional baby translator capable of converting a baby's cries into understandable speech. It was a ridiculous idea at the time, but today it doesn't seem nearly as impossible. Advances in artificial intelligence have inspired researchers to study whether computers can identify patterns hidden within infant vocalizations. By analyzing characteristics such as pitch, rhythm, duration, frequency, and intensity, machine learning models are being trained to distinguish cries associated with hunger, sleepiness, discomfort, illness, or distress. While no system is perfect, studies continue to show that babies produce recognizable acoustic patterns that AI can learn to classify with increasing accuracy. The technology is already beginning to leave the laboratory. Several startups and research groups have developed smartphone applications that analyze a baby's cry within seconds and provide parents with the most likely explanation. Other projects combine audio analysis with video, monitoring facial expressions, breathing patterns, and body movements to improve accuracy. Hospitals and neonatal intensive care units are exploring whether similar systems could help monitor premature babies, detect early signs of medical distress, or alert healthcare workers to subtle changes that might otherwise go unnoticed. Once again, The Simpsons exaggerated an emerging idea for laughs, only for science to begin turning that fiction into reality. Unfortunately, our next prediction is far less comforting. Number 11. A Third World War. Global conflict has always been one of The Simpsons' favorite subjects for satire. Across multiple episodes, the show has joked about nuclear weapons, Cold War tensions, international rivalries, and humanity's remarkable ability to stumble into disaster. Whether it's Homer preparing for the apocalypse or world leaders making reckless decisions, the series repeatedly exaggerates geopolitical fears that have existed for generations. What once seemed like over-the-top comedy has become increasingly unsettling as international tensions continue to rise. In recent years, concerns about a broader global conflict have resurfaced. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 reignited fears of confrontation between major military powers, while conflicts in the Middle East, growing competition between the United States and China, cyber warfare, and nuclear rhetoric have fueled debates among analysts about whether the international order is entering a more dangerous era. Although experts disagree on whether these crises could escalate into a true world war, many acknowledge that geopolitical instability is at its highest level in decades. One frequently discussed Simpsons moment involves dialogue suggesting that Russia had merely been waiting for the right moment to reassert itself. The scene has often been linked online to the war in Ukraine. The Simpsons has consistently captured the idea that peace is fragile and international rivalries never truly disappear. As alliances shift, military technology advances, and global crises overlap, the possibility of wider conflict lingers. Fortunately, our next prediction is considerably less alarming, though no less surprising. Number 10. Living on Mars. In the 2016 episode The Marge Ian Chronicles, Lisa is selected to join a mission to establish a permanent human colony on Mars. Unwilling to let her daughter leave Earth alone, Marge volunteers as well, and before long, the rest of the Simpson family follows. As always, the show turns an ambitious scientific milestone into hilarious family chaos. But the underlying idea is surprisingly grounded in reality. The episode even pokes fun at one of space exploration's biggest obstacles: delays. Although the mission is initially expected to launch in the 2020s, repeated setbacks push the departure decades into the future. Meanwhile, Mars has become the primary long-term destination for real-world space exploration. NASA continues developing technologies for future crewed missions through the Artemis program and related deep space research, while SpaceX has made Mars colonization central to its long-term vision through the fully reusable Starship launch system. At the same time, the European Space Agency, China's CNSA, and other organizations continue studying the red planet using orbiters, landers, and rovers that analyze its geology, climate, and history in search of evidence that it may once have supported microbial life. Scientists still face enormous challenges before permanent settlements become possible. Future astronauts would need protection from radiation, reliable food and water production, sustainable energy sources, advanced life support systems, and ways to withstand years of isolation nearly 225 million kilometers from Earth. With every new mission, what once seemed like an impossible cartoon storyline edges a little closer to reality. Moving on. Number 9. When Disney bought the studio that aired The Simpsons. In the 2000 episode Bart to the Future, viewers briefly see a sign reading 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Company. Nearly 2 decades later, in March 2019, the Walt Disney Company officially completed its $71.3 billion acquisition of most of 21st Century Fox's entertainment assets, one of the largest media deals in history.
With that breaking news, the blockbuster Disney deal, the parent company of ABC buying many of the assets of 21st Century Fox, creating an entertainment giant.
The purchase dramatically reshaped the entertainment industry, giving Disney control of blockbuster franchises such as Avatar, X-Men, Deadpool, and The Simpsons itself. The acquisition reflected a much broader shift across the media landscape, where major corporations increasingly sought to combine film studios, television networks, streaming platforms, and intellectual property under a single corporate umbrella. As audiences moved away from traditional cable television toward on-demand streaming, owning vast libraries of content became one of the industry's biggest competitive advantages. Number 8. Music for mind control. One of The Simpsons' cleverest satires of the music industry arrived in the episode New Kids on the Block. Bart, Milhouse, Nelson, and Ralph are transformed into a chart-topping boy band called Party Posse, complete with catchy songs, flashy choreography, and screaming fans. But beneath the polished image lies an unexpected twist. Lisa discovers that one of the band's biggest hits contains the mysterious phrase, "Even ate Nyoj." Played backwards, it becomes "Join the Navy," revealing that the group's popularity is secretly being used as a military recruitment campaign. It's an absurd premise, but one rooted in a long-running debate about the influence of media. Throughout history, governments, advertisers, and corporations have relied on music, films, celebrities, and popular culture to influence public opinion, encourage recruitment, sell products, or promote social causes. During major conflicts such as the Second World War, propaganda posters, radio broadcasts, movies, and patriotic songs became powerful tools for boosting morale and shaping public attitudes. Modern advertising and social media campaigns continue using psychology, repetition, emotional storytelling, and influential personalities to affect consumer choices without relying on hidden messages. Number 7. The shift to clean energy sources. In Season 27, Lisa Simpson enters an alternative energy derby with a solar-powered vehicle, convinced that renewable technology represents a better path forward. Just as victory seems within reach, a giant blimp deliberately blocks the sunlight, leaving her car powerless. The moment is played for laughs, but its underlying message about resistance to change is surprisingly relevant. Lisa's invention symbolizes a transition that is already reshaping the real world. Over the past 2 decades, renewable energy has expanded at an extraordinary pace. Solar and wind power have become among the fastest-growing sources of electricity worldwide, while advances in battery storage, electric vehicles, and grid technology continue reducing dependence on fossil fuels. Governments and businesses have invested hundreds of billions of dollars in cleaner energy infrastructure, driven by concerns over climate change, energy security, and long-term economic sustainability. The blimp, meanwhile, works as a metaphor. Fossil fuel companies and advocacy groups fund lobbying efforts, public relations campaigns, and messaging designed to influence climate policy or cast doubt on aspects of climate science. At the same time, many traditional energy companies are now investing in renewable projects themselves. Once again, The Simpsons exaggerated reality for comedic effect while highlighting a genuine debate that continues today. This next one is really shocking. Number 6. The Barbie movie and the arrest of Donald Trump. In 2023, two of the year's biggest headlines unexpectedly collided. On one side was Barbie, the fantasy comedy that became a worldwide box office phenomenon after its July release, earning more than $1.4 billion globally.
Now to a day that will be unprecedented in U.S. history. Donald Trump expected to become the first current or former president to be arrested and arraigned on federal criminal charges. He's expected in a Miami courtroom within the next 3 hours.
On the other hand was former U.S. President Donald Trump, whose legal troubles dominated news coverage throughout the year, including his historic criminal indictments and arrest processing. Fans quickly pointed to an episode that appeared to combine both topics years in advance. In The Full Monty, a television news broadcast briefly references Donald Trump's arrest before shifting to a story about Malibu Stacy, Springfield's fictional fashion doll that has long served as the Simpsons parody of Barbie. At first glance, it looked like another random joke, but then it became real. It's easy to understand why this scene attracted so much attention. Number 5. Confined to a Dome. When The Simpsons movie premiered in 2007, one of its most unforgettable images was Springfield being sealed beneath an enormous transparent dome by the U.S. government. The drastic quarantine follows an environmental disaster caused by the town's own negligence, cutting residents off from the outside world almost overnight. Food becomes scarce, panic spreads, and tensions explode as ordinary citizens suddenly find themselves living under extraordinary restrictions. It was an exaggerated comedy, but one built around surprisingly serious ideas. At the time, the notion of confining an entire community behind a physical barrier felt like pure fiction. Years later, however, audiences revisited the film through a different lens.
Good evening. The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and that's why we've been asking people to stay at home during this pandemic. You must stay at home.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, governments around the world imposed lockdowns, travel restrictions, quarantines, and border controls to slow the spread of the disease. Although nothing resembled Springfield's giant dome, millions of people experienced limitations on movement that would have seemed unimaginable only a few years earlier. The dome itself works best as a metaphor. It represents the tension between public safety and individual freedom, a debate that resurfaces whenever societies face major crises. Whether responding to pandemics, chemical spills, nuclear accidents, or environmental disasters, authorities sometimes restrict access to affected areas to protect lives. Advances in surveillance technology, digital tracking, and emergency management have also expanded governments' ability to coordinate large-scale responses during national emergencies. Moving on. Number 4. The rise of holographic communication. In the 2000 episode Bart to the Future, Bart receives a holographic invitation to perform with his band, treating the technology as casually as we treat a text message today. At the time, it looked like another whimsical glimpse into an impossible future. Fast forward to today, and holography is no longer confined to television screens. Researchers and technology companies are developing increasingly sophisticated ways to project and manipulate three-dimensional images. Modern holographic displays are already being used in medical visualization, engineering, education, military planning, museums, and live entertainment. Concerts featuring digital recreations of deceased performers and interactive 3D presentations have demonstrated how immersive the technology has become. Consumer applications are advancing as well. Mixed reality headsets, augmented reality glasses, spatial computing, AI-powered interfaces, and light-field display technology are steadily pushing communication beyond traditional flat screens. Although today's systems are not yet the free-floating holograms portrayed in science fiction, they represent important steps toward more natural ways of interacting with digital information. Engineers are also exploring volumetric displays that allow multiple viewers to observe three-dimensional images without special glasses. Will holograms eventually replace smartphones? Nobody knows for certain. Significant challenges remain. Even so, the direction of technological progress is unmistakable. Number 3. Swallowed by a black hole. Among The Simpsons' wildest science fiction moments is the appearance of a tiny black hole that suddenly materializes in Springfield. At first, it seems like little more than an odd curiosity. Before long, however, the miniature cosmic object begins swallowing everything nearby. What starts with small objects quickly escalates into buildings, vehicles, and eventually the entire town, turning an ordinary day into an unstoppable catastrophe. It's an outrageous premise, but one inspired by one of the universe's most mysterious phenomena. Real black holes are anything but fictional. They form when massive stars collapse under their own gravity or through other extreme cosmic processes, creating regions where gravity becomes so intense that not even light can escape. Supermassive black holes containing millions or even billions of times the Sun's mass reside at the centers of most galaxies, including the Milky Way. In 2019, astronomers released the first-ever image of a black hole. In 2022, they followed it with the first image of Sagittarius A, the supermassive black hole at the center of our own galaxy. Scientists have also explored the theoretical possibility of microscopic black holes, but there is no evidence that any have ever formed on Earth or pose a danger. Even experiments conducted at powerful facilities, such as the Large Hadron Collider, have shown no indication that particle collisions could generate world-threatening black holes. Current physics suggests that if tiny black holes were created under exotic conditions, they would evaporate almost instantly through a process known as Hawking radiation. So, could Earth one day be swallowed by a black hole? Based on everything scientists know today, the answer is overwhelmingly no. Well, at least for now. Still, The Simpsons transformed one of the universe's most fascinating mysteries into unforgettable comedy. This next one, however, is far more plausible. Number 2. Ivanka Trump as president. The Simpsons has a habit of dropping background jokes that later attract enormous attention. One of the most debated examples comes from a 2016 episode featuring a brief but memorable detail. Homer Simpson is seen wearing a campaign badge reading Ivanka 2028. At the time, it barely registered with most viewers. Years later, however, the image resurfaced online. The timing certainly helped the theory gain traction. The episode aired during the 2016 U.S. presidential election, just weeks before Donald Trump won the presidency. As Trump's eldest daughter, Ivanka Trump went on to become one of the most recognizable members of his administration, serving as a senior advisor in the White House from 2017 to 2021. Her prominent political role naturally led some observers to wonder whether she might eventually seek elected office herself. This has long been part of American politics, political families. From the Kennedys and Bushes to the Clintons, relatives of prominent leaders have often pursued public office, making the idea far less far-fetched than it first appeared. This next one is perhaps the most devastating of all. Number 1. Nuclear apocalypse. If there's one fear that has haunted humanity for nearly 80 years, it's the possibility of nuclear war. Ever since the first atomic bombs were detonated in 1945, the world has lived with the knowledge that civilization could be transformed in a matter of hours. Unsurprisingly, The Simpsons has repeatedly drawn on that anxiety, using nuclear disasters, fallout shelters, and atomic catastrophe as material for satire. Beneath the comedy, however, lies one of the most enduring fears of the modern age. One memorable example appears in Homer the Great, where Homer stumbles upon the Stonecutters, a secretive organization portrayed as quietly influencing world affairs. Among the episode's many absurd jokes are references to preparations for nuclear catastrophe. Decades later, that anxiety remains very real. The world's nuclear powers collectively possess thousands of nuclear warheads. Experts regularly warn that escalation, miscalculation, cyber attacks, or accidents could increase the risk of a nuclear crisis, even if all sides seek to avoid one. The humanitarian consequences of any large-scale nuclear exchange would be catastrophic, extending far beyond the battlefield through radiation, infrastructure collapse, and potentially severe climatic effects, often described as nuclear winter. Perhaps that's why this prediction resonates more than any other. Let's hope this is one prediction that remains forever fictional. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.